Hello, everybody. This is JD, and welcome to our next class on our fundamentals. Right now, we're going to talk about proportion and repetition. And the picture with we're going to start is from the video game Ghostbusters. I don't know if you have played it. I have not played the game. Anyways, proportion. Proportion refers to the size of an element based or compared to other elements in our art. It's actually something very easy to notice. Look at the picture that we have over there and look at the characters. 4 men. And you can see, can infer that these are 4 tall men. Okay? And maybe you're watching this class with your cell phone. Maybe you're watching this in a computer. Or maybe you're watching a huge screen. Doesn't matter where you're watching it, you have the perception that these 4 men are tall. Why is that? Because of proportion. When it comes to characters, for example, it's very easy to notice that something is big or tall in the case of character because of the size of the head and also the size of the body. Okay? This proportion, this relation tells us that they are tall. The opposite example, think of Smurfs, these blue characters that are super small, and we perceive they're small not because everything in a forest looks bigger, not because there are other characters. We perceive they're small because their heads are big, but their heads are big compared to their bodies. That's how proportion works. Finally, one more example. Look at the ghost at the back. It's huge, right? And it is huge because there is a relation between the size of this ghost and the size of the buildings. We know for a fact that buildings are big. So if the size of this ghost is very similar, that means that the ghost is actually huge. Okay? Next, repetition. Repetition means to have the same element several times. Okay? And this makes it attractive. Now, it is more attractive when we have odd numbers, not even numbers. Okay? We don't like even numbers, we love odd numbers. Ask me why. So, example of repetition, well, you have the rays here and here. Okay, another example of repetition, for example, look at this window and this window and this window. They're pretty much the same, right? But they work in harmony because you have these elements, and notice there are three. If you have those 3 windows over there, or if you want to count the ones on top, 4 and 5, we still have odd numbers here. 1, 2, 3. Usually odd numbers, okay? And we have several of these elements to decorate, call it somehow, our art, okay? And to give it more light. Again, make sure that um, you have odd numbers, not even numbers, and it doesn't have to be a lot. 3 or 5, they work like a charm. Okay? Let me show you other examples. Here, this is from another video game, Ratchet and Clank. I think this is the most recent video game. Okay, now a question for you: look at the two main characters. Okay, look at this character over here. Look at this character over here. I think about their height. Are they tall? Are they short? Think about it. And why do you think that answer? If you look at them, you might consider that they're not as small as a Smurf. They're not tall as the Ghostbusters. I would say the height of a 7-year-old kid, for example. Okay? And why do we get that sensation? Very simple. Because their heads, compared to their bodies, are huge. They're really big. So that's why we have a sensation that they are small. And if you look at the bottom, so no, sorry, if you look at the background, these creatures over here, which ones are taller, these creatures or this guy? Again, look at the size of the head, which is also big. But if we look at the proportion, we consider the proportion. This head, compared to this body, is smaller than this head. Therefore, we have the sensation that this is actually a bigger character. Okay. Repetition. I think this one is actually pretty obvious. If you look at the background, like the lots of enemies, okay, and you see them like in sets. You got 3 over here, you got 3 over here, okay, you got 3 over here. This one is not very visible, and you have 1 over here. Okay, you have 3, you have 2 maybe, 1. Okay, notice how repetition makes things more interesting. Also, look at the characters themselves. This part over here, the ears, these marks, there, that's repetition. And they have 3 marks. They don't have 4, they don't have 6, they don't have 2, they have 3 marks. Why? Because it's a not number. Okay. Let's check one more picture. Traditional, a classic. Starry Sky, if I'm not mistaken, sorry. Starry Night. Okay. And here you can see something from the previous class, which is movement. Okay. This painting is super popular because there is movement. How did the artist achieve movement? Very simple, with the curves. Lots of curves. That's how everything seems to have the sensation of movement. Well, let's talk about proportion, right? Because this class is about proportion. Look at these buildings over here. Okay. You can perceive that they're actually big. Oh, that this building is actually bigger because you're comparing it to houses. Okay. Well, that this part over here, this is something huge. Not only because it's supposed to be at the front, because we have that perception, that comparison, that this is really big. Okay. And also we can compare that to the hills, to the mountains that we have here. Okay. And finally, repetition. Constant amount of curves. Obviously, you're not supposed to count here. Okay, let's see if there are 100. That means it's not an even number, or 101 means it's an odd number. No. Remember that the fundamentals, this is something super important that you have to remember from the very beginning. Fundamentals are guidelines, okay, because this is art. Sometimes we're going to have the rules, the fundamentals, and we can bend them or break them depending on the work that we're doing. In this one, for example, we're not going to focus on the amount of lines that show movement, but there is repetition. There is repetition in the background with the mountains. Okay? And there is this repetition over here with this, which I don't really know what it is. I think there are some bushes and some trees. Okay, so there you have repetition. There you have proportions, and you can also say that you have balance because you have this space over here, but you have some elements in the sky, some other elements here. You have the space, and then you have this part over here. Contrast, some lights are on, some lights are off. So notice how all the elements, I use these pictures to explain particular fundamentals, but all fundamentals are being applied in the previous one and in the new ones. Okay, so that's it for this class, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye bye.